Welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. Y'all, I have been going live for over 200 days in a row, and I just feel so privileged to be here with you tonight. It's cool to think about that. 200 days. I have had a lot of guests on here. There's been a lot of concepts that have really deepened and strengthened for me as a result of coming on here and going live. I've had folks tell me not to do it. I've had folks tell me to do it and everything in between. And this whole topic tonight of how to live authentically actually really speaks to this battle that I went back and forth between for a number of months. It's like wondering, am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right path? Should I be doing this? And when everyone around you has conflicting messages, the question really becomes this source of opportunity for you and I to decide, what do we really think about something? When most everyone around us is all bent in one direction and leaning in one direction, much less going in one direction, it's a lot harder for us to go against the grain. And it's also just much more natural to go along with them. But when there's opposition or when there's conflicting narratives and conflicting viewpoints, that's really an opportunity for us to examine, well, what do I really think about something? And so this whole question tonight that we're going to be examining, how do I live authentically? It's something that I didn't even really know that word authenticity up until about 4 years ago. Living authentically, becoming emotionally intelligent, none of these phrases were used in my childhood. None of them were used in the shaping and training and cultivating of who I am today up until 4 years ago. And so it felt like a foreign language. It felt like something completely unheard of, something I had never touched or tapped into. And so with this whole discovery of authenticity, I've had to really do work and really come to learn what it means to live authentic. And because I didn't have a framework for it, a lot of it was personal discovery. It wasn't necessarily going and reading what do other people have to say about this. And I actually think that there's so much power in that process of not being told how to think, but rather being taught from within. And that alone, that is the definition of intuition, the Latin root of intuition, that is intuere. That is a Latin word for intuition, and it means to be taught from within. And so when we stumble upon these concepts, upon these ideas in adulthood that we haven't been taught or told what to believe or think about it, we actually get to experience it for ourselves. And as I was experiencing the concept of authenticity and emotional intelligence for the first time, not being told about it by anybody, but learning about it from my own self, effectively learning about it and being taught from within, man, it just became so important to me and so special to me. And I think that that's exactly what the cultivation of our intelligence is supposed to be like. When we actually learn how to awaken our soul, our spirit, our mind, we get to be taught literally from within these connections to God, these connections to the world and each other in ways that logic perhaps can't really define or reasoning can't account for, but that are literally so special and almost like in our DNA as humans. And it's this whole other layer, like subterranean, that we, and at least I don't really have a category for, but I've experienced. And that's where, when we add in the experience of the thing, that learning, that lesson is so much more meaningful than just the head knowledge about it. And so this concept of how to live authentically has been something that's been it's been so fun to explore, because I didn't know who I was for 28 years of my life. I had no idea, and I never thought about it. It wasn't something that I sat wishing and wondering, "Oh, who am I?" I never found myself asking those questions. But I did find and realize that when one of the most important relationships in my world at the time fell apart, and my future, consequently, I realized I had no idea who I was. And I had no idea it's almost like who's the person looking back at you? When you look in the mirror, and there's this poem about the most important relationship that you and I can come to encounter and reconcile with is the one that is looking back at you every night. It's the concept of you're born alone in this world and you die alone in this world. And so if we're not at peace with the person looking back at us, then how can we actually have peace in any other relationship in our lives? And so with this concept of living authentically, it has been such a fun journey to actually experience learning about this whole concept for the first time, learning from within rather than being told what to think about it or being told even definitions of the word and the concept. And so, with that, tonight we're going to be talking about how to live this way. And when I think, even just before I started the show, I just was thinking, what does it actually mean to live authentically? And the thing that really stood out for me, we have to know the truth in order to live authentically. We have to know our experience. We have to know what's going on inside of us in order to then proceed from that place. Because otherwise, if we don't know the origin state, the originating place, we can't operate from it. And so we have to actually do the work and take, I call it radical responsibility, to go inward and come to understand what is going on inside of me. How do I feel? What do I think? What do I believe? What do I like? What do I want? All of those questions that, frankly, for me, at first kind of face value, I would look at those and be like, those are so basic. Of course, of course, I know the answers to that. But then when I actually sat with those questions, all of a sudden I would almost freeze. It's like, well, I don't know. What do I want? What do I like? And I was asked some of those questions when I was 28 and starting my journey here. And I did not know the answer to most of those questions. Like, what do I want? What do I need? What do I like to do? All of those questions that seem so basic at first blush, all of a sudden I just felt so like this blabbling, like, I don't know, I don't know anything about me, because I had never taken the time to ask those questions and actually sit in my experience. Most of my life, I had been sitting in the experience of everybody else. I had actually put such an emphasis on empathy because I was so terrified of disconnection and moving out of relationship with people that I never once thought about what I thought, want, or needed because of fear. I was operating fundamentally from a place of fear in relationship that I could not then operate from a place of authenticity, because what if? What if what I said they wouldn't like? What if what I wanted they didn't want? What if what I needed they didn't need? And what if my core being actually fundamentally divided me from those I love? Well, I'd rather have that not happen. So let me just ignore myself and suppress anything that comes with it. And so before I continue, I just wanted to say a quick hello to some folks who are joining. I'm live on a couple different streaming platforms, but John Jacob, thank you so much for joining tonight. Just Jokes, thanks for coming on here. Mark, hello from Mississippi. I am in your neck of the woods. I'm in St. Louis. I'm visiting a client tonight. It's good to see you. Simon, good to see you tonight. White Clear, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate your comment here. This guy, hello. Mark, I am from just outside of DC. I live in Northern Virginia, and I am from Gaithersburg, Maryland. This guy, oh, New Zealand, good to see you. Good morning. White Clear, good morning. Simon, I know the truth. I love that. I think that that's actually really, really important that we take the time to know what's true for us. Aubrey, good to see you. This is real. I am live. Duncan, good to see you. And Brian, James, good to see you guys. I'm going to continue with this conversation because, frankly, this question of how do we live authentically is one that I think it's like we need to continue to come back to this, because we never can overdo authenticity. We can't overdo vulnerability. And there's a big difference there. Vulnerability, the way that I think of it. Okay, so imagine with me, if you will, if we were to be looking at um, almost like a thermometer. Okay, so red is at the very top, and then we've got green at the baseline, and then yellow's right there in the middle. Operating from a place of authenticity, for me, it's between green and yellow. Like you're being strong and real and honest and integrous. When we start getting into vulnerability, that's where we actually have some open wounds. We actually haven't had a full scar develop and form. We're actually still raw and tender about certain things, which then moves us into the yellow or potentially the red. So it's almost like the closer you get to the red, the closer you move to real time pain. Like this thing is a triggering moment. I haven't resolved it, I haven't worked through it. I am vulnerable. I am almost, think of it almost as like a risk assessment. I am at risk of being activated and triggered around this topic. And if we're at high risk, we probably should be careful to not talk about it in a conversation such as this. Like it is actually my responsibility to not bring topics up to you all and with you all that, man, if you all put something in a comment, I'm just going to lose my head and I'm just going to go nuts. That's not wise. So, just like that in any normal conversation, if we're on the highly red, deep, dark red scale in this thermometer analogy around a topic, we are highly vulnerable around it. And therefore, we need to proceed with such caution as we engage surrounding it, talking with a therapist or our partner or somebody who is very safe, because otherwise, there's this concept that I actually really, really like. It's a biblical text. And the concept is, do not cast your pearls before swine. And then the second half of it just blew me away. I was reading it the other day and I was like, oh my gosh, do not cast your pearls before swine, lest they turn around and trample you and eat you. So it's not just dangerous to throw out your vulnerability out there because of they might be unkind, but they could actually come around and use that vulnerability against you. And so it's so important that when we're operating in that level of authenticity, it's like we're talking about wounds that have turned into scars. We've taken the band-aid off and we're able to look at this and be like, hey, this is the lesson I learned. Here's the battle scar. I'm good. It's not open. It's not oozing it, much less it doesn't have a band-aid on it. So when I think about authenticity versus vulnerability, I am curious to hear what you all think, but I don't think I've ever experienced someone who is too authentic. And authenticity truly means, in my perspective, operating from a baseline of truth. So, truth, as in, when I'm saying truth, I'm not talking about moral absolutes. I'm talking about the truth of who they are in that moment. If I was to close my eyes and think of, okay, who am I really? How am I right now? I actually had a challenge. Someone was with me over my birthday when I went live, and they were like, I want you to be even more authentic. And I was like, I don't know how to be more authentic. But every moment during that conversation, anytime I caught myself thinking about something else, thinking about how I'm being perceived, thinking about anything other than this moment, anything that takes me out of the present, that's when I find myself starting to drift away from my source of authenticity. Because ultimately, I have to know who I am in order to operate from that place. And so I can only ever be as authentic as I do know myself. So this work of knowing who we are is the key to uncovering our authentic self and our true self. And this is what's so exciting. So bear with me because I'm ideating as we go. Michelangelo, when he was asked, how did you sculpt David? And David was iconic at the time. They never had they seen a sculpture like David before. And it's because Michelangelo would go and dig up cadavers, which it was highly illegal at the time. And he would go and look at these dead bodies and see how they were made. And then he would bury them again before it was morning and then go and proceed and keep working on his sculpture. It was crazy. And so that process, somebody asked him, like, how did you do this? And his answer is so beautiful and an example for us of how we need to go about examining our own experience and knowing ourselves. He said, I had to remove who David was not. and allow for David to come forth from this piece of marble. This, I think it was made of marble. And really, that is exactly what we're trying to do here. It's removing and eliminating who we're not. And so when we're asked, well, who are you? If we don't know, a really good place to start is, well, okay, who am I not? And then we just get closer and closer and closer back to, okay, that's who I am. And then what's cool is that after we've removed, okay, this is who I'm not, coming back to our baseline of who we kind of were almost before the nurture, because we've got our nature and then we've got the nurture. The nurture is what's been added to, and some of that addition needs to stay. Some of that addition is really good and really beautiful. I'm so grateful for those aspects of what my mom and my dad gave me that frankly have made me so much more well-rounded. I'm so grateful for that. So we come back to the core, to the center of our nature. And then we decide which pieces we're going to intentionally add back in from our nature. And then we get to add even further from there. It's almost like once we come back to this baseline of who we were created to be in the first place, then we can create. That is true creation, built on an original structure, an original frame that is no longer corroded by the things that have been added to it over time. So just going back to some of the chats here before I keep going. Aubrey, I saw you say just blurred the background. I'm in a hotel room and I have my pants right there. I'm wearing sweatpants right now. So I have a blurred background. Aubrey, emotional intelligence. Yes. I love that. Alone, easy target. I'm so curious. You say don't reopen old wounds. I would love to hear you expand on that. That's super interesting. Blood Legion, thank you for joining. Crazy Sick Wine. I had wine tonight. Thanks for joining. Dubski Style or Dub Styles. Remain solid, unadulterated, filterless, and unapologetically. I love that. Oh, I love this. Blood Legion, you saw David's Michelangelo's David over the summer when I went to Italy. Very impressive. I still have not seen it. I've been to Florence 3 times and I still have not seen it. So I'm so glad you got to do that. Jovan, who I am not, hard to please, good to see you. Steve Hansmith. I know I'm wearing a lot of jewelry on my left hand. My ring broke this morning. So you're right. I do have, and it's actually my right hand, but yes, I have a lot of jewelry and it's so sad. I was thinking earlier I should move one of my actually while I was on this. See, this is what's so funny. I was thinking I caught a glimpse of my hand earlier and I was like, oh, I should move my jewelry over. And I was like, no, come back to the present moment. Y'all, coming back to the present moment, it's hard. It's so hard because controlling our minds, this is something that I'm realizing more and more. The more I'm working with people, the more I'm chatting with different folks at the knowing retreats, the more I'm realizing how much really truly controlling our minds is it's almost like a lost art. We don't know how to do that. We don't know how to actually take the thoughts in our minds, pull them out and look at them and be like, oh, interesting. That's what I'm thinking. Oh, interesting. Do I want to choose to think that? Because, and speaking of Michelangelo, I saw another quote by him. No, I'm sorry. This was by Marcus Aurelius. I saw this quote today. Our thoughts color our soul. And so what we choose to think about ends up impacting our soul, which is where our emotions live. And then we wonder why we get sad and depressed and anxious and fearful. Well, what are your thoughts? Audit your thoughts. And so with this whole concept of staying so present here in this moment, it's like anytime, even on the show, y'all, this is why a couple nights ago, I actually stopped reading the chats because it was so distracting seeing the chats come up. And I was seeing people talking about things that had nothing to do with what I was talking. And I was like, oh, this is confusing. And so I actually had to turn the chats off because I couldn't be so present with this conversation and maintain the flow and the direction. And it's almost like being in well, what's it called? The leader of an orchestra, the director. What are they called? Somebody help me out here. Please tell me. What is an orchestra director called? symphony orchestra. I don't know what's it called. I'm looking here in the chat. I don't know. Somebody come to my rescue. But there's something around being able to orchestrate everything that's happening in our lives, whether a conversation that we're having right here, right now. If we're trying to have a conversation, we've got kids going crazy in the background, or we've got all these chats happening here on the side. Okay, how do we stay super present? Yet last night I brought up the analogy of a conductor. Alone, easy target. Thank you. Conductor Dove style. Hard to place. Guys, thank you for coming in and saving me. A conductor. Obviously. It is so hard to come back. I talked about this analogy last night of a horse with blinders on, just being so laser focused on this is where I'm aiming. This is where I'm going. This is who I want to be, how I want to live. This is what I'm called to do. And then that is where I'm going. And I've got boundaries serving as guardrails to guide me on that way, on that path. I've got blinders on so that I'm not looking to the right and to the left. But it's like, literally, when you look at horses, they start moving their head and then they're pulled right back. I want to live that way, And here's the thing. It's not for the purpose of rigidity or being dogmatic or black and white, because I grew up that way. The purpose of discipline is actually freedom. On the other side of discipline, we get to experience life and experience holistically. Now, here in this moment, I get to live the fullest and best life I possibly can. Here in this moment, this conversation, I don't know how long it's going to go, but this is now. This is what we have right here, right now. We don't have tomorrow. We don't have 10 minutes from now. We have this moment. And am I living it to the best of my ability? Am I proud of how I'm showing up? Am I proud of the words coming out of my mouth? Am I proud of the thoughts I'm thinking that are translating into words and the emotions that are coming up and arising within me? It was so interesting talking about emotions and thoughts and words kind of working in concert with each other. I had an early flight this morning. So I woke up at 4, got my stuff together, and then was driving to the airport. And I listened to this talk by this woman. And what's funny is that I was listening to her and I started feeling a little bit like, oh my gosh, like she was so aggressive and so intense. And what was funny is actually I thought of her just now as I was getting so excited and getting loud. And I thought of her, and that totally took me out of the moment. And because I was really feeling, I was getting so excited. And then I was like, oh, this woman this morning actually felt really aggressive and it was a little bit like, it was a little bit much. And so what's so interesting is for us to understand what are those things that can bring us, I think of it as vertical alignment. We've got our ideal. Here's our navigational system. We've set our ideal. We know where we want to go. We know the chart that's being set before us. We know our course. And then it's bringing our mindsets, beliefs, behaviors, everything under alignment to aim in that direction. Now I'm heading in the right I'm in the right orbit, right? But it's important for us to know what are the things that take us out of that orbit, out of alignment. I'm no longer on the straight and narrow. And one of those thoughts, ever since I, was married, was the thought and being told, you're too loud, you're too much. And so ever since then, I have to pay attention to that narrative, because that narrative has a lot of roots in shame. And so, that whole concept of we're starting to get excited, we're starting to feel like we're on our mission, we're starting to be aligned, we're living potent and clear, and then all of a sudden shame creeps in. And y'all, that happened to me just now. And it was so subtle, and I didn't, I probably could have kept going and you wouldn't have even known. But we're talking about authenticity here, right? How to live authentically. And sometimes actually coming in and naming the shame is just as important as sometimes actually moving forward and saying, no, I'm actually not giving you any attention. I'm keeping my direction and my trajectory. I'm moving forward. There's a concept that I heard to that latter point, to the point of just continuing and moving forward. Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So if I actually start thinking about, dwelling on, and putting my attention towards things that I don't like, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I hate that. And it's like, here's the goal, and I'm moving away from it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate it, or like being so distracted by the things that we don't want, how we don't want to live, how we don't want to show up, that it actually distracts us from the target in and of itself. And so there's this delicate balance, the conjugation and, so that I can know when shame's coming up and really address it, take control, take mastery of it, but then also realize I don't even want to go there. I'm going to keep my attention where I want to place my energy, and I'm going to keep going, and I'm kind of bowl through the shame narrative that's showing up. There's a really delicate balance of knowing when to do both. And being authentic, there's this is so interesting, and I'm just thinking about this now. It's taking control and making the choice of who we want to be, and being so tapped into, but how am I feeling right now in this moment? So it's really this is so interesting, this interesting dynamic of like, I'm going to choose to move forward towards my ideal and move forward towards my goal, and I'm going to say the truth of how I'm feeling here in this present moment. Just going to pause there and take a moment to check in on some of the chats here. Man, this is so fun. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. I love having these conversations, and I love hearing from you guys. And thank you for saving me on the conductor bit. I'm so glad you did. Oh my gosh. Hard to please. You're so sweet. Can I buy you a ring? I need to buy myself a ring. Look, it's like, I was so sad. It snapped this morning in my car on my way to the airport. Christopher Adams, Maya Angelou once said, I'd rather be hated for who I am rather than loved for who I am not. Man, I'll circle back to that in just a second. That's so good. Read The Power of Now. Thank you for saying that. I actually have listened to it. I don't think I've read it. And I actually had it in, like, I have books on my Audible, and I'll just listen to it while I walk through cities. And I need to circle back on that. I don't think I've listened to it in a while. So thank you. Oh my gosh. And then you said, we are the stories we tell ourselves. Dub Styles, whether you think you can or can't, you're right. Man, there's so many mic drop moments, y'all. What the heck? We are the stories we tell ourselves. Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Both of those, so incredibly good. Y'all, I really believe this. I've seen it for myself. I actually was literally just writing about this while I was at dinner tonight. What we believe comes true. And that's where this concept of truth is really, really challenging, because we've been talking about truth. Even tonight, we've been talking about truth as something like what my experience is, like the truth that I am experiencing right here in this moment, not the moral absolutes. And to honor the conjugation we were just talking about, this concept of experience is really important to differentiate, because my experience, I get to self-perpetuate what I believe to be true. And I will then effectively forecast that out and like put that out there. And then once I put that out there, I'm going to find it. We find what we're looking for. We get what we want. I fully believe that. And I love what both of you said. I'm actually going to screenshot both of these because I want to remember these. These are so good. Thank you both. Okay, Alone Easy Target. I need to go back and actually read The Power of Now, because I've listened to some of it, but I haven't actually done my deep dive here. Okay, Christopher Adams, you said 3 verses come to mind. Romans, I'm going to screenshot this and I'll actually read it tomorrow. I don't know those verses off the top of my head, but I was reading Galatians this morning, so ironically. Someone says, Christopher says, I'm struggling coming out of heroin. How could God love me? I'm genuinely struggling. I thank you for being so honest. It's so funny. I'm just gonna say something that I actually think is true. I really believe that God really just loves you. And it really doesn't matter all that much what you do because he looks at the heart. God reminded me of that of me. He reminded me of that the other day. God looks at the heart, in so many ways. I got to tell you, the man after God's own heart, David in the Bible, whether you believe it literally happened or it's just the allegory, he was ascribed as a man after God's own heart after he committed murder and committed adultery. So if he can be a man after God's own heart, that God just cherishes and loves and prizes, then I believe that's true for all of us. There's not much worse beyond that. So I hope you take that to heart, because truly, I think that there's a lot more love that none of us to really understand the love of God, I think is probably one of the most incredible things that we could ever possibly consider. And this is something that I want to share, and I do feel vulnerable over this. It's not an open scar or wound, but I'll share it because I feel like we've all been hanging out together and we're all close here. I've been seeing the same amount of people here, so it's not like we're having people come in and ruin our group. There's this verse in the Bible that it says, "The Lord is dancing over you with singing and delighting over you." And I had like a picture come into my mind 2 years ago of God dancing over me. And even now, I'm just feeling sick to my stomach sharing this. It is like, I don't even know. And I'm just, bear with me while I like close my eyes because I just really want to like get so honest here. The fact of God dancing over me, it's like, what is that is so hard for me to believe? There's so many aspects of it that are so hard to believe. I think part of it is that it's almost like too good to be true. I think my husband leaving really did do a number on me. I want to earn it because I want to control it. I think at the end of the day, that's it. So the thought of God loving me and dancing over me without me doing anything, it's almost like I can't even conceive it. It's like I don't have a compartment in my brain that can receive the fact that I'm loved without doing anything, And I just really appreciate, Christopher, you saying that because I think that all of us, at the end of the day, it's like, what is getting in the way of us being able to receive love? And being worthy apart from what we do. It's like we are loved. That's just the truth. We are loved. We are worthy. That's just the truth. We don't have to do anything. When I think about, again, allegory, literally or not, what Jesus would say to people when they would come to him is he would just be like, "Oh, well, like just don't sin anymore." And the sin that when I read that, I'm thinking about like the times when we actually like to believe that we're not loved. I actually believe that that's an example of, it's like missing the mark. If we're like, "Oh, I'm not worthy," it's like, no, that's actually not true. Like, stop believing what's not true. When people would come to Jesus, she'd just be like, "Oh, great. Like, you're forgiven. Do you have faith? Cool. You're forgiven. You're good. Go and sin no more." Like, just stop believing lies. And I think the thing is then we have to know what's true. And that's, man, when I actually really do sit with myself. It's funny, y'all. That's really where I actually find a lot more of what I really truly believe than when I'm in the noise of everyone around me. And when I'm in the noise of everyone around me, I'm like, "Oh, I'm supposed to produce. Oh, I'm supposed to prove my worth. Oh, I'm supposed to show everybody that I am of value." Rather than when I'm alone with myself, just me and God, I'm like, "Oh, God, like there's so much freedom here. I don't have to produce for you." So then the question becomes, whose voice is louder? Their voices or what we know to be true when we're alone with the creator of the world who made us in his image. So, Christopher, thank you for sharing that. You're wonderful. I really appreciate you saying that. And hard to please, I'm not married. My husband left a couple years ago. Resume, energy flows where attention goes. I love that. Shame is the enemy of conviction. It becomes the veil over the doorway to repentance. Oh, another great line. My gosh, guys, I'm loving tonight. Dub Style says, never let others have that much control over your mental real estate. I completely agree. That's so good. Steve, thank you so much for joining tonight. Patriot Watcher. I'm just scrolling down. There is beauty in the struggle. The Creator gives us pain to remind us to allow the process to be healed. That in itself is the epitome of love. That in of itself is the epitome of love. I completely agree. I have found that the process, like that's really where so much of the cultivation of ourselves happen. It's like that's where the change is. That's when we're in the fire, where the dross is coming off and gold is coming forth. I love that. John, thank you for so much for joining tonight. Resume. This is life. Life is God. It's constantly changing. It's changing constantly. This is the dance. Oh, I love that he said this is the dance. But you look at yourself, imagine life that could be, but missing life's happening right now. That's the dance. I love that. Being able to truly accept being loved, you must learn to love yourself, flaws and all. I completely agree. Honestly, I think we can't really love others to the fullest extent until we learn to love ourselves. I think that we'll actually be impeding that potential for love to be conveyed and flowing out of us until we actually learn to truly harness it and leverage it and have it come from a real deep place ourselves. Christopher says, St. Adam taught us to embrace our suffering or St. Paul taught us to embrace our suffering because it allows us to realize how much we truly need God. And it shows us that God isn't denying us of something. He's preparing us for something greater. That's so beautiful. Joanne says, Jovan, I'm sorry, says that he definitely has a beautiful plan for those he has chosen, and he sent his only begotten son. I love that. I will say, I actually think that there is something around our choice as well. That is the biggest and greatest choice. The verse, and not to get overly religious here. I don't like religion. I like relationship. I like all of us activating every part of us, which includes our spirit, which gives us access to God. And I also do know a good bit of scripture because that's what I was raised reading. And I have found so much hope there. So I'll counter those two things here. This concept of if the story is true, which I hope and believe it is, that God became man, which is the most beautiful thing. Emmanuel, God with us. Like that is so much hope. My gosh. And it was for everybody. It says Christ is in all. And so it's our choice then. Are we going to choose to live alive and awake and aware of these truths and believing the truth that we're loved, that we are chosen, that we are free? And so with that, how to live authentically, there's so much choice in that question. There's so much choice on the other side of it. Are we actually going to choose to come to know who we are, to come to know who we were created to be, to understand nature versus nurture and the difference between the two, and where maybe nurture kind of clouded or corroded our nature? And then are we going to shed that? And then are we going to actively choose to create and add to, like 𝐤𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐲 said, he found David. Once we find truly the integrity of who we were created to be in the first place, are we going to then add to it faith and love and virtue and all good things about where we and who we need to be to get to where we're called to go? And so with that, I'm so grateful for you all joining tonight. I really, really loved tonight's conversation. Thank you so much. It really was encouraging to see like meaningful conversations here in the chat. So thank you, every single one of you for participating. Shake the stars from the sky. Thank you for coming on tonight. Dub Styles, Steve, have a wonderful night, everybody. I will see you tomorrow morning as we move through A Course in Miracles on The Knowing Show.